So I'm Greg Hobbs of the Colorado Supreme Court. I've been on the court 17 years, and before that I was counsel to the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District for 17 years. But I've been a poet a lot longer than I've been a judge or a lawyer. And I was just thinking about the great Patty Limerick and her new book about the history of Denver water and how she has limericks introducing major themes. And I recall that she wrote those limericks on the plane over to a conference at Western State where we're doing the annual water workshop, and I suggested to her she ought to have some limericks in her book. But I'd said that 20 years before to her. So, you know, it takes the great historian a while to actually come around. And she had to, you know, all this technical thing and the economics of water and the language that we speak as water engineers and water lawyers isn't really conducive to the public understanding what these issues are regarding this most basic of all water resources. Well, she's broken through with her limericks. So you know, I have just thought for a long time that I needed the right side of my brain to complement my judging side, and I do a lot of speaking, you know, throughout the West, and I often introduce my talks or intersperse them with poems I've written, either for that conference or after the conference that occurred 2 weeks before, or you know, just out on the road fishing or hiking or rafting. So I do think the creative arts definitely have a place to play along with all these other great water professions we have.
When did you first start writing poetry?
Well, I had a great high school English teacher. He thought he was Cyrano de Bergerac, so he started every English class. This was in San Antonio. I actually went to 3 different high schools because my dad was in the Air Force. But he would recite us from the play Cyrano de Bergerac, opening every English class, and he'd help us tune our ear to the language, the music of the language. And the language has such music to it, and the communication to it, the summary in form of images, you know, analogies, metaphors, things that get the public to understand what we're talking about, you know, is what Patty does so well. Of course, she's got that zigzag brain, you know, where all of a sudden it looks like she's veering off to something else, but it's something that, you know, has sparked a story. And storytelling is the oldest art of human beings. You know, the troubadours, you know, their stories and their music. So, you know, I had this wonderful experience at a water festival, 2-day water festival at Metro State University of Denver, where 6 of my poems were put to music. And it was just great, because there's something about taking the written word, you know, poetry is made to be spoken in any event, and then setting it to music. It was just very exciting. Well, we had all these wonderful other topics about water, but the most well attended by the students was the one that introduced rap and poetry and song and chants and, you know, storytelling around water.
Oh, I love that. Do you have a favorite poem of all the poems that you've written?
I've seen the mountains falling, heard the mighty canyons ring with Colorado thunder and clear blue mountain streams. I've seen the days grow brighter and the night just shine in gold, looking for El Dorado in the mountain of my dreams. So there's one stanza that I wrote back in 1973 when I decided to move back to Colorado from California.
You've been speaking today about Western water law.
Yeah.
How does understanding history and the integration of poetry in that?
Well, every ditch, every water structure has a history to it, a reason for being, because under prior appropriation, you've got to make actual beneficial use of the water. You've got to be able to take it from the stream. So every ditch has its reason for being, as well as this very wonderful asset, the water rights that are associated with the ditch structure. So the whole growth of the West can be traced through the water use. Excuse me.
Of course, in the Colorado legislature, on the walls of the legislature, we've got.
Well, those are those murals, and they're great. Thomas Hornsby Farrell. Yeah. He was, you know, he worked for the Great Western Sugar Company, the sugar beet industry. And he was their publicist, but he was writing poetry on the side that really spoke to the experience of being a Westerner. And water was one of his principal themes. I don't think his poems are read and sung enough. There are many great poems that he wrote that are not just those ones that people refer to on the murals of the rotunda of the Colorado State Capitol. So I urge folks to find his writings. They're available.
Well, how about for water professionals? Is it, I mean, a lot of people have talked about poetry being therapeutic or helping them think through a problem or...
Well, I think so. You know, I went to a workshop where 3 USGS hydrologists held forth about groundwater for 2 days, and then I wrote a poem called Calibrating the Model, and it was really about the interaction of groundwater and surface water, and I've been told since then by some of those geologists that I captured the essence of Darcy's Law. Well, come on, the mathematical equations doesn't mean much to me. I'm a history major. But the interaction, the music, and the energy, and the recharge, and the discharge, and, the sustainability, and all those concepts, they make for poetry because, poetry is about nature itself and the inner workings of nature. So there's a lot of this science that's grounded in our water system that actually can be expressed in other art forms. And I think there are great movies being made too. I mean, Chasing Ice, and some of these, great movies on the Colorado River. Sometimes I think they're too dramatic. They like crisis, the press likes crisis. But the future of the West, as Wallace Stegner says, is the barn raising, is the cooperation, is the optimism, is taking a short supply and extending it for the use of our families and the things like we enjoy, the environment and recreation as well. Mm-hmm. So as usual, we want it all, and it's all water-based. We're water creatures. So, that's why some of our high-end development, is now occurring along the reclaimed trashways. When I came to Colorado in 1971, there were sewage and car bodies and in the Platte and the Cherry Creek. All that's been cleaned out. There's water flowing, and, there's bike paths and walking paths, and these high-end lofts or downtown living are along there. There's a reason for that.
Do you have any advice for someone who is working in water that wants to give poetry a try?
Read other poets, and my book, Colorado Mother of Rivers, is available free for downloading on the website of the Colorado Foundation for Water Education, cfwe.org. You can go and you can purchase the book for $10, or you can download the entire manuscript for free. So that's 218 water poems written over 4 decades, and they have different forms and themes, and I hope some of those might appeal to somebody, but basically there's no substitute for reading poets and then going at it yourself and taking a workshop, right, which I've done with the gifted Colorado poet Catherine Winograd. My wife and I have taken several workshops with her over 2 decades. She teaches at Arapahoe Community College. There are people like that can help you get into doing it, maximizing your expressions and your words and your ideas. It's all worth doing. We get, in this field, we got to be writers and communicators anyway, no matter what professional slot we have.
Right. Say I'm a water citizen?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey, water citizens.
Good.
Unite.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.